program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the channel today, everyone. I'm Sara Higdon. I'm your host, and this is Transform to Freedom. I am excited. Obviously, you see that there's a little bit of a different camera angle than what you're used to or what I usually have. I am doing some studio updates. So right now, things are not exactly where I want them to be. I'm getting a new desk. I'm getting in a lot of new stuff. I got a new chair. Obviously, you see the new upgraded microphone, which I'm excited to start playing around with and doing that stuff. I'm gonna start doing some more streams, possibly doing some maybe game streams on different platforms such as Twitch and Kick and all that. So we'll see. We'll go from there. But I'm excited to be back with you today. Got a pretty good show. I mean, there's a lot happening in the world, and so we're going to discuss. But if you didn't already watch, I did create a video on Friday that you can go see, and it's about the crazy spending that's in this new spending bill, the $1.2 trillion spending bill that passed the House last week. And it's amazing that it passed the Republican-led House when you really look at what's in it. And that was just the tip of the iceberg last week, was talking about, I pointed out to this $400,000 allocation to an organization that they provide breast binders, they provide counseling, they provide so much stuff behind parents' consent, mostly to runaways in Wisconsin. And really the biggest key takeaway with that is, again, like if you want to support that kind of stuff, you can donate your money to go towards these causes, to these organizations that are doing this kind of stuff. That's your prerogative. I disagree with your prerogative, and that's the whole reason. Also, if you want your tax dollars to go towards it, you and your local community can petition your local government, your local and state government, to fund those types of programs. But don't push this out to somebody like me who lives in Georgia, and make me pay for something out in Wisconsin. And this is part of the issue with these $1.2 trillion spending bills, these massive spending bills. Again, a lot of this stuff is allocated to stuff that's never going to affect any. They're only going to affect a very small minority population that they're connected to. So, but yeah, so that's, we'll talk actually a little bit more about that coming up. But if you haven't, go back and watch that video, because there's some two different ones that I talked about in there, and we got some more to highlight here, actually, as our first, here in a second. But if you remember, I want to just kind of go back, and this opening segment is generally to highlight the stuff that we've covered in the past, if there is anything, any updates to stuff. And so if you remember, we discussed Alaska Airlines when that door panel flew off, what, about a month or so ago. And so now we have an update. So, okay, there's an ad. 1 second. Okay, so apparently last week, the FBI notified passengers, people that were on that plane at the time, they notified them that now they may be considered victims of a crime. Why is this significant? It's because who conducted the crime? Is it being are they going to start to charge people? Did somebody purposefully not put that door panel on properly, or door plug? It was a door plug. So it was a plug. So the inside of the plane looked like a normal plane. The outside of the plane, you could tell that it looked like a door on the outside, but it wasn't actually a door. And they put that plug in there. And now remember, that plane was only a few months old. It was back in January. Actually, let me go down. Yeah, January 5th. So on January 5th is when that happened. That plane had just been put into service in November. And so was this a purposeful act by somebody? Is that what they're investigating this for? We don't exactly know too much information. We just know that the FBI Seattle field office reached out to passengers to inform them of a potential status of a crime victim. Why does this keep coming up? Stop it. As crime victims, and assuring them that the case is under investigation. So it said, following the incident, an investigation discovered that several bolts holding the panel in place were missing after the plane was worked on at a Boeing factory in Seattle. So that could be, there was bolts missing. So is it going to be a negligent crime, or was it purposeful? I think that's really what it remains to be seen. Did somebody forget to put bolts on? Did they shear off? We have to understand what kind of happened there, right? But this is significant because depend on who is responsible. So it goes down to as well, like, is Alaska Airlines responsible? Is Boeing responsible? Again, we don't know who. They're probably investigating all avenues. Okay, because we've seen a huge uptick in stuff happening with airplanes lately, right? It's kind of insane. I've gotten to the point where I'm almost a conspiracy theorist on this, thinking that this could be a master plan for climate change to not get us to fly so much. I'm almost there. It could be. I would like to think that they would not put people in harm's way for that, but yeah. So again, big news, big update. We will sit and watch and wait to see what happens from there. Now, going back to what we were talking about at the top of the hour, or top of the show, about other stuff that's in this new spending bill. I think this is one that really deserves to be highlighted, because there is we were talking about 400, what was it? 400, it's 400,000 or 400 million for that. 87 million in new congressional spending bill for social emotional learning initiatives. It says SEL takes mental health practices and brings them into the classroom, turning teachers and lessons into therapy tools. Yeah, if you've never seen, let me see, what else does this put in there? There was some other stuff that we talked about it in here. Let me see. So the $1.2 trillion spending package from Congress, in addition to earmarks, that seems to be a little priority to the American people. So, such as $30 million to the Department of Homeland Security can buy new electric vehicles. $87 million goes to social emotional learning. The earmark falls under the Department of Labor, Health and Human Services. And now, why is this significant? If you remember back in 2022, about October of 2022, I wrote a op-ed in Human Events about social emotional learning. Now, if you don't know how to get there, you can actually go to there. If you've never been to my website, you can go to sarahhigdon.com and you can see all the articles that I've been on. I've written in my links tab. You can also find all my social media stuff. So if you go in here, you can see it's one of the first ones I did. So this one right here. And it's about social emotional learning. So here's the thing. I wrote, and we've discussed how social emotional learning is essentially a social credit system that's being implemented in schools across the country. What it's doing is, so the people like Kessel have come out with this idea that building a child's EQ score, which is the emotional quotient score, is actually more important than their IQ score, so their intelligence score. So instead of teaching them the basics of math, arithmetic, history, and all this stuff, they are teaching them to be more emotionally aware of their feelings, right? And be more emotionally, I guess, secure. But that's not the job of a school. Now, when was this implemented? Think about this. We know that social emotional learning really kind of cracked its way in around 2020 when most of the kids were having issues, mental health issues from being locked at home and not being able to see their kids, not being able to see their friends, not being able to go to school, and not, and so social emotional learning was was pushed in at that point. I do want to point out that Kessel is the main organizer of social emotional learning. Kessel is also funded by the Gates Foundation. No need to talk about what else the Gates Foundation was funding prior to 2020 that, and then after 2020. So according to Kessel, it says SEL is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge and skills and attitudes to develop healthy identities. They break it down into 5 competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Does any of this sound like what they should be teaching in school? The answer is no. No, I don't believe that they should be teaching this type of stuff in school. Now, like I said, this was expanded upon by the Superintendents Association, the AASA, the School Superintendents Association, and it was expanded upon into Learning 2025, where they were trying to push this initiative of whole learner based relationship models to push them into by 2025. That's when they were trying to get it to be implemented throughout the country. One of the biggest things with this, and the reason why I consider it to be it's a social credit score in a lot of ways, because what they do is instead of schoolwork and stuff like that, the teachers hand out surveys and to see how well adjusted, like how you're feeling that day or week, how how everything's going. It talks about their relationship with teachers and parents. So if you think about what's the best way to get information about what's going on at home with a student, get information to, on if put kids against their parents and telling on their parents without the kids really understanding that they're telling on their parents, that is make them do a survey at school. So think about, like, in 1984, or Orwell's 1984, what would happen is, and actually this is pretty common. You can read about this in in the Soviet Union and other communist places, where basically children have no ties to their parents. They will tell on their parents if their parents are, violating the communist government's rules, and so everybody's turned against each other. And so this is kind of a way to do that. I mean, in China right now, we have a social credit score, and the CCP has implemented a social credit score, right? And so what's a way to implement that social credit score? Understand whether, parents are, you know, not doing what the government wants them to do or approves upon, but it's not necessarily illegal, so they can't really lock them up. Get children to tell on them, and um, in these surveys as well. There is an app that's being developed. It's called, where is it? Um, where is it? Uh, okay, I don't know why this is locking up on me. Okay, well, that's frozen. Cool. Um, it's called Panorama Ed. So the app is called Panorama Ed, and it was developed by Zuckerberg Foundation, and it was put in. And basically, it's really interesting because Ed, you can, a teacher or any administrator at the school has this app on their phone, to where if say two kids get in a fight, the teacher can give them down marks for the fight that they're in. If they do good in class, a teacher can give them up marks and everything like that. So what that's teaching the children, right, is to so in all intents and purposes, it's conditioning children to accept, rewards and whatnot based off of these conditions. The conditioning that um, has been set forth by uh, their instructors, and basically down to even, the government level. Um, so yeah, that's why that's an issue. And so we're paying, again, 85 million dollars out of your stolen tax dollars to you know discuss, where this is going. Again, that's a huge, 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 huge issue. And it shouldn't be going into teaching kids. Oh my god, why is this not working? I am sorry, everybody. My computer's messing up. One of my screens isn't working. Okay, let's see if we can do this from here. Got my other computer pulled up. So, with that though, we'll move on. Thank you. I can't read your name because I don't know how to read read the language, but I thank you for saying, "Hi, Sarah. I love the show. And thank you for the $5 super chat. Love the show. You've become my favorite source for current news and just want to show my support." And you said it. Yeah, your display name is unreadable, but thank you so much anyways. Oh, yeah. This technology, man. I know, Neo Wolf, the technology is killing me right now, but it's okay. I don't know why it's deciding that it doesn't want to. I got one screen. Interesting. But at the same time, I have multiple screens, so I can run off of here. I just don't remember what's next. So let's look at what's next. Let's talk about the Justice Department. So the Department of Justice just they announced this weekend. Where is this? Here it is. All right. Shoot. Wrong screen open. Man, everything's going great tonight, isn't it? Let's see. Shoot. Okay. Now I have to figure out log in. Okay. Now we got it. Okay. That's one. So the Department of Justice has now launched and created its new this new red flag center. So basically what they're saying is the center will provide training for implementation of laws that remove firearms from individuals who pose a threat. Now you might be saying, what's the issue if they pose a threat and everything like this? But this is government overreach. This is government saying, basically without due process, that they can come in and take your guns. Now, this is clearly a federal level red flag operation. This is completely against the Second Amendment. The Department of Justice doesn't have the right to do this. We know this, but they claim that, you know, the launch of the National Extreme Risk Protection Order Resource Center will provide partners across the country with valuable resources to keep firearms out of the hands of individuals who pose a threat to themselves or other. Apparently, this came from a bill that was passed in 2022 by the Biden administration. That it was a what is it? A gun control legislation. So this basically what it sounds like is the Department of Justice will put you on a list, bring you, if they think that there's a serious issue, then they will get with local law enforcement to then go steal your firearms because they think that you are a risk. This was part of the Safer Communities Act, which is to protect communities from gun violence. Which is amazing that it's never gone to the Supreme Court. It's really, it's interesting because, and so the Biden administration has basically, they prioritize red flag legislation. Now think about this though. What they're saying is, if they think that you are a threat, the police can then come with a no-knock warrant, kick in your door, and seize your guns if they even make it that far. Because think about most homeowners, if they don't know the police are coming, if the police don't knock on the door, what's going to happen? This is why we call swatting attempts, we call that that's attempted murder. Because what the swatter is trying to do is get the police to kick in the door and then, you know, accidentally shoot somebody that they don't like. This needs to get shut down. I mean, red flag laws and red flag laws are an issue of themselves because, again, they take away due process. There is they circumvent your Fourth Amendment right to due process. So it's not even just a Second Amendment issue; it is a due process issue that that these types of laws do. And really, think about who is this. It's the same argument as I make when it comes to sending soldiers to war, right? The people that are passing these laws and expecting other people to implement them. So I've seen people say that they support the federal government going in and or just the government going in door to door and taking everybody's guns. But that doesn't generally, that's not going to turn out too well. If they are going door to door taking everybody's guns, that's a good way to start a violent revolution. I'm not calling for that, but I'm saying that's what happens when these types of things start happening. And who is the first that's going to be in the breach? It's like people who have guns to protect their homes, and if they don't know you're coming, they're probably going to protect their homes because they don't know that you're the police. And so these red flag laws will along with no knock raids will get people killed. And whether that's and it will probably it'll get more people than bad people. I mean, most people are probably law-abiding citizens that are that they think is suspicious for one reason or another. There's no reason. Red flag laws are, and they're wildly unuseful, right? How many times have we seen a state with red flag legislation, and then there is a mass shooting in that state, and then we find out that the person that conducted the mass shooting was known by the police, and the police did nothing about it? So they just it basically is a huge Second Amendment rights violation by that administration. They know it. We know it. There's no other way around that, right? But yeah. Let's move on. Let me see. Can I get this moving? I can't. We're gonna shut these down. Okay. Okay. So moving on, let's talk about this story. Now, this is a kind of it's a crazy story. If you were watching this weekend, I hope I lost it. So, where was this out of? This was out of Wisconsin, I believe. Again, Wisconsin, yes. So, this drag queen sex offender arrested for a third time. I believe it was for the third time for sexual offenses with minors. How this person was still out of jail, that's kind of beyond me. I don't know how this person was able to continuously stay out of jail. It was posted yesterday. I think it was yesterday, right? Yeah, yesterday by Libs of TikTok. And it said, so the whole thing was this drag queen who performs for children and is a registered sex offender arrested on 8 charges relating to child sexual abuse, including exposing his genitals to kids and having sex with a minor. This is a crazy story because we reported on this back in 2023. The same person, whose name is Dwight Evan Chisholm, aka Snow White as a drag name, was charged with 1 count of working with children as a sex offender and 2 counts of bail jumping. Now, basically, this person in 2023 was working at a dance studio for children ages 6 to 19. Had previously been arrested in 2019. Had previously been arrested in 2019 for a sexual assault with a child, stemming all the way back to 2011. So crazy stuff. So in 2019, he had sex with a 17-year-old boy he met online. Was already, and that was a violation. Was charged with child enticement and sexual intercourse with a child in 2019. In 2011, Chisholm was sentenced to prison for 3 years after being charged with sexual assault on a child. after those 3 years, was on probation, and is a lifetime registered sex offender. And between the years of 2017 and 2019, police were unable to locate him. Apparently was homeless. Police were unable to locate him. Wasn't, he stopped checking in as was required of sex offenders. But there was a 4-year period where they did not know where he was. And so then that's when was that until he was then again arrested in 2019 and then went on to work at a dance studio for children. Was arrested again this last week on 8 counts, 2 being felonies. So he's facing 8 charges involving sexual conduct with minors, including 2 charges of having sex with a minor, 16 or older. So it is charged with two felony offenses of child enticement, exposing sexual organs, along with 3 counts of misdemeanor sexual assault by having sex with a child 16 or older. Again, I mean, I contend, how is this person still walking the streets? After the first one was sentenced to 3 years. And then they lost where this person was. So who knows what happened between 2017 and 2019. Caught again for doing the same thing in 2019, and then violated the terms of being a sex offender by being around children. So this person's not allowed to be around children, period. And so because like the dance studio didn't know he was a sex offender because he was a volunteer, he wasn't on the payroll, so they didn't have to run a background check. That's what that and so probably knew this, that they weren't going to run a background check because he was just a volunteer to get closer to children. I mean, make this make sense. These people don't need to be walking the street, especially after all this stuff. So thankfully, back in jail, was put on was on 0 bond, so not eligible for bond, which good. I don't understand this. I mean, this has nothing to do with sexual orientation or gender identity or anything like this. This is a person who doesn't need to be around kids no matter what. We should be calling this out all the time. Some may say that it was because of the LGBTQ whatever status that he was able to kind of walk free and get lenient sentences, and to that I would say maybe, but probably not, because the first one was back in 2011. So again, back in 2011, I mean, LGBT stuff was not even really super accepted. So I wouldn't, most even Democrats at that time were against gay marriage at that time. So I don't think there was any like special privilege back then, but maybe that's why he got 3 years then. And then from 2017 to 2019, they're like, why are we going to go after this person who's in this community? It doesn't make sense. So yeah, that's just one of those stories that will absolutely make your blood boil and make you completely understand why the LGBT community, because of the queer community, is now losing acceptance. Basically happening quite a bit. We've seen it in different polls, everything like that, right? It's sad. It's not what we want or what should be happening, but it is. So see, this is what happened. I hope I'm not freezing to you. I hope my screen's not freezing for y'all, but it's kind of choppy for me right now because I'm using one computer way too much, drawing too much power from my main computer to run everything. But let's talk about the big story of the day. So we have, let's see if this pulls up quickly. Okay. So Ronna McDaniel. So this is actually kind of going back to another story we talked about a couple times on this show as well. So if you don't know who Ronna McDaniel is the former chair of the Republican National Party. She previously resigned after basically President Trump got the nomination when became the presumptive nominee, and she resigned, and now Trump's daughter is now the chair of the RNC, which it's a good move. She was Vivek Ramaswamy had hammered her, told her she should resign during one of the initial debates because she it was obvious that like she was having these debates on NBC and all that, and leftist news organizations that would not that are not like friendly to Republicans anyways. So she got a lot of heat for that, and he wasn't wrong. He was definitely right in that regard. And so that's where it was. So she did end up resigning last month or so. And big shocker, she decided to sign a contract with NBC News. Kind of hilarious when you think about it, because going from the head of the Republican National Committee to a left-wing biased news organization of NBC, which then will be a contributor on MSNBC, which is very left-leaning. That's where all their opinion shows are. They're very far left opinion shows and everything like that are on MSNBC. And so now she's a contributor over there. Kind of interesting, to say the least. So she had an interesting conversation on Sunday morning's Meet the Press. So let's play this.
RNC chair, you have to right into this. Let's dive right into this and start with your decision to step down as RNC chair. If you can, take me behind the scenes a little bit. Were you pushed out of your role? Well, there's no question that as RNC chair, you have to remain neutral. And we had a primary process. And so we did have debates, right? We had debates, and there was tension and a little friction that started during that process. It was well played out in the media. And I knew at that point, when I was doing that role and we were going to have debates, that when the nominee came forward and it was likely to be President Trump, that they would want to switch. And that's his right as nominee. And so were you pushed out by him? He absolutely wanted me to move aside and wanted Michael Whatley and Lara Trump to come in. And you say you were neutral. You did put out that statement before he was officially the presumptive nominee, effectively calling on Nikki Haley to step out of the race. Can you say you were really neutral? I can. I mean, we had a neutral primary. We had debates. I mean, look at the Democrats. They didn't have debates. Now they have RFK Jr. running as a third party. Imagine how the world would be different if they'd have allowed those debates to take place. I think that's so important to our public discourse. So yes, I was neutral. But as I said at that time, there was no math and no path, and that was true. And so we did need to consolidate behind the nominee, and that's what I did.
So interesting that, I mean, said that she was neutral. She might have been neutral at the time, but again, having the debates on places like MSNBC or NBC and all those and all that, it was really something that, somebody that wasn't really attached to the party would have done. Like Vivek said, should have done the debates, you know, on X with like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan and others, high profile people on the right hosting those debates. So why would you go on somewhere like NBC to host a debate for people that are never ever going to vote for Republican, ever? It's interesting. And this was really a weird conversation after
Let's
she was
dive
on.
right into this
One
and
sec.
start with your decision to.
So right after that, another NBC host, Chuck Todd, came on to discuss Ronna McDaniel joining. So this is what he said. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. So I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this. I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this, because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination. So that's where you begin here. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News?
It's really interesting that he describes what has happened to the news organization as gaslighting, right? When it's clear that these people, they lie all the time. Look at what we talked about last week, the bloodbath comments. Look at how all that was completely taken out of context to gaslight the American people that listen to NBC News, to misrepresent what happened in a way that it didn't, that it in a way that it didn't happen. It's also interesting that he brings up, is she speaking in a way to appease the bosses? That's kind of isn't that the role of a news commentator, to make sure that you're getting the message out there that the bosses want you to get out there? We know this is, when people leave news organizations, we see this all the time, that we hear people start to talk about what was going on behind the scenes, how a lot of these even more prominent newscasters can't actually run the stories that they want to run. Look at what happened with Tucker Carlson when he left Fox News. And it was like, it was really like he wasn't able to, he was kind of getting that treatment where if he wanted to run a more controversial story, they would kill it because it wasn't in their brand. Fox News is not I wouldn't even say it's a slightly right-leaning news organization. But they have their biases more towards the neocon agenda than they do like the America First, like not the America First movement, but like the people that think that we should stay at home and not send our soldiers around to war, and that want to, protect American interest. They are so, or even the libertarian agenda. They're not interested in that at all. They are more focused on the big government neocon agenda, like we talked about. It's kind of like going back to the spending bill. Why would all these, these Republicans vote for this spending bill? Well, that's why, because they are big government. They just want you to think otherwise. Why would so? It's really interesting. Like, is she speaking for the party or is she speaking for them? I think it was NBC, maybe MSNBC, hired the literal former press secretary for the White House, Jen Psaki. She literally, her job was to speak for the president in the press room. So is now she speaking for her bosses, or is she speaking for herself? Is she giving her own opinion, or is she giving the approved opinions of the bosses at MSNBC? You see how dumb that argument is? How dumb Chuck Todd is to even bring that up? But this is what it is. Because she is right-leaning, and she will give an opinion, and she could go rogue away from the opinions of the bosses. I actually think that he wants her to give the opinions of the bosses. He doesn't want her to say what she actually believes to work there. Because if she says what she actually believes and goes rogue, then she's going to say some stuff that they don't like, and that debunks the narratives that they want to push at NBC. But yeah, I think that she will fit in pretty well over there. What's really interesting about Ronna McDaniel is actually she was President Trump highlighted her quite a bit, and then she was kind of big until she was kind of responsible for, the red wave that never happened in 2022. So, but Trump was all about her. Actually, I'm pretty sure Trump endorsed her to get reelected as the RNC chair over Harmeet Dillon, of all people. Harmeet Dillon would have been a great RNC chair, and she should have been, foisted up there, and that's who they should have voted for. But I believe it was Donald Trump who vowed for Ronna McDaniel to stay in the position. So it's an interesting turn of events, and that's kind of how politics goes sometimes, though, But yeah, and as things go, the crazy, the former MSNBC host Keith Olbermann, who I think somebody needs to check on Keith. Somebody needs to check on Keith's blood pressure, because he's a lunatic. He's just crazy. I mean, watch some of his videos online, or don't. I mean, for your own sanity. If you want to laugh, watch some of Keith Olbermann stuff, because he is like this raging progressive leftist who has nothing to offer. And now he was fired from MSNBC. And so what's he going to do? I mean, he's kind of old news. And so he goes crazy about this. He goes crazy. It's interesting to watch. But yeah, he went on multiple Twitter rants about this issue. So, the other thing about Chuck Todd is, how do you go on there and go on your own network and bash your own network? It's kind of funny. You go on there to bash your own boss about hiring somebody that you don't like. It's going to be a great work environment for her, right? But so Keith Olbermann said the person they hired to shit on the admittedly damaged reputation, I guess because they probably fired him, right? That's what he's trying to say, I think. Damaged reputation of NBC News, denied the honesty of 2020 election, and called the company's opinions host propagandist. Well, they are propagandists. They're opinion hosts that lie all the time. So it is interesting. I think it's funny because Keith Olbermann, again, doesn't work there anymore. He was probably fired for being a, propagandist. And like I said, he goes crazy. It's kind of funny to watch when he goes crazy on there. But in another post, he pushed Ronna McDaniel's tweet that said from 2023 that said MSNBC's primetime propagandists wasted countless hours pushing the Russia collusion hoax. Last night they discussed Durham's report for barely 10 minutes, in which they insisted the weaponized government found the report was no big deal. That's a perfect example of the propagandist of their host, because Russia collusion never happened. And they were all about it. They were all pushing it, and they still push it sometimes. And so, and then they talk about, like she said, the Durham report. I can't remember what the Durham report was about, but I'm pretty sure it was about the Biden administration. Is that the Hunter Biden situation? It might have been the Hunter Biden laptop situation. Not sure. Don't quote me on that, but it's one of those. So, and they found that out. They just said it was no big deal because it didn't go along with their approved narrative and their approved politicians on their side. Keith Olbermann says this is the utterly dishonest fascist NBC News hired and placed in rotation on MSNBC. And Maddow and Lawrence and Chris Hayes are not only going to take the hiring of Ronna McDaniel, they're going to take it quietly. I'm utterly ashamed of them. Keith Olbermann's lost it. He's lost it. Bro, they fired you. So this looks like a disgruntled ex-employee just ranting about them because he disapproves of what his old bosses do. Oh, in the appointment memo from head of NBC News, Politics and Election Reporting, they defended the appointment and said it couldn't be a more important moment to have a voice like Ronna's on the team as we gear up for the longest general election season in recent memory. She will support our leading coverage by providing an insider's perspective on national politics and on the future of the Republican Party, which she led through some of the most turbulent and challenging moments in political history. I mean, it's for NBC, it's not a bad hire. I think it's a bad. I think it's worse for her to take that position, but for MSNBC, if they want to give this illusion of a right-wing perspective on their platform, it's not a bad idea. I mean, she's not going to have much insight into the direction of the party after she's gone because the party's going to change and leave. They're probably also hoping that she has dirt on like what's going on behind the scenes that she can kind of leak out throughout the election season about the administration. And I think they're going to hope that she's kind of more of a disgruntled ex-employee of the RNC and push that stuff out there too. They'll get, the exclusives and everything like that. I think that's what's going on. So interesting exchange there. There's quite a bit. I was gonna end it, but since the computers aren't really working today, there is a video and definitely go check out the postmillennial.com, where you can find out all these other stories that we're going to run. Like I was going to talk about we could have talked a little bit about Jeff Bezos' ex-wife giving millions to trans issues, to transition, organizations that push for the transitioning of children, and a lot want males to compete in female sports. There was, and on that topic, a Manhattan school district passed a resolution and it's the largest school district in Manhattan, passed this resolution demanding that the New York City reevaluate the data behind trans gender questioning minors to compete in female sports, what their transgender sports policy will be. Push for that. And actually, it was really interesting because Elliot Page showed up. Kind of interesting to see, trying to use that star power to shame them into voting the way that they wanted. And then the last story, and it was just going to kind of give you a little bit of a laugh, but go look this one up. Vice President Kamala Harris visited Puerto Rico, and I think this was I'm pretty sure this was the first time that anybody's visited Puerto Rico since 2021. But visited Puerto Rico, and they were singing a song in Spanish, and she was just clapping along until the head of the organization that they were visiting leaned over and told her something, and she stopped clapping because, and it would assume that she told her what the words to the song were, and they were asking Kamala why she was there. It was a song. It was a protest song of her visit, and they were, and she didn't know it. And so it was kind of one of those embarrassing moments for the vice president, but she has a lot of those. So definitely go check that stuff out. I want to thank you all for joining me today, as we do every Monday. Can't wait to get this new studio set up. I don't know how much is going to change on what y'all see here, but it's something I'm excited about. So we'll see. Maybe I'll do a behind the scenes what the studio looks like once it's all organized and finished. But yeah, so I want to, if you haven't already, make sure you go click that like and subscribe button below. Tell me what you think in the comment section. Follow me across all social media platforms, and I will see you next time.